She almost caught her balance. Almost, but not quite. She stumbled and continued falling toward the track. There was nothing she could do, only put out her hands and raise her head so the crushed red gravel would not scrape her face. Knees and elbows, yes, but not her face. As if it really mattered. She hit the track and skidded forward, but she didn't feel any pain. Not yet. The pain would come a second or two later. Right now, all she felt was shame and embarrassment. Already the humiliation was sending blood racing to her cheeks and to her ears. Yes, sir, just another day in the life of Becka Williams, the new kid moron. As soon as Becca's little brother Scott walked into the bookstore, he knew something was wrong. It wasn't like he was frightened or nervous or anything. It had nothing to do with what he felt. Instead, it had everything to do with the place. It was wrong. But why? It certainly was cheery enough. Bright sunlight streaming through the skylights, aqua blue carpet, soft white shelves with rows and rows of colorful books. Then there was the background music, flutes and wind chimes. But still... "You coming or what?" It was Darryl. Scott had met him a couple days ago at lunch. Darryl wasn't the tallest or best-looking kid in school. Actually, he was about the shortest and nerdiest. His voice was so high you were never sure if it was him talking or someone opening a squeaky cupboard. Oh, and one other thing. Darryl sniffed, about every 30 seconds. You could set your watch by it. Something about allergies or hay fever or something. But at least he was friendly, and as the new kid, Scott couldn't be too picky who he hung with. New kids had to take what new kids could get. For the past day or so, Darryl had been telling Scott all about the Society, a secret group that met in the back of the Ascension bookshop after school. Only the coolest and most popular kids could join. Scott wasn't sure he bought this coolest and most popular bit, since they'd let Darryl be a member, but he didn't want to hurt the little guy's feelings, so he let it go. "Hey, Priscilla!" Darryl called as they walked past the counter toward the back of the bookshop. "Hey yourself," a handsome middle-aged woman said. She didn't bother to look from her magazine until the two boys passed. When she glanced up and saw Scott, a scowl crossed her face. She seemed to dislike him immediately. He hadn't said a thing, he hadn't done a thing, but that didn't matter. There was something about him that troubled her. A lot. Scott was oblivious to her reaction as he followed Darryl toward the hallway at the back of the store. So far, his first week at Crescent Bay had been pretty good. No fights, no broken noses, a minimal amount of death threats. But that's the way it was with Scott. Unlike his older sister, Scott always fit in. It probably had something to do with his sense of humor. Scott was a lot like his dad in that department. He had a mischievous grin and a snappy comeback for almost any situation. Scott was like his dad in another way, too. He had a deep faith in God. Well, the whole family did. But it wasn't some sort of rules and regulations thing, and it definitely wasn't anything weird. It was just your basic God's the boss, so go to church and try to make the world a better place type of faith. But sometimes that faith, sometimes it allowed Scott to feel things, deep things, like now. As he and Darryl entered the hallway, Scott brushed against a large hoop decorated with what looked like eagle feathers. He ducked to the side only to run smack dab into a set of wooden wind chimes. They clanked and clanged noisily. Lately, Scott hadn't been the most graceful of persons. That probably had something to do with growing 2 inches in the last 3 months. He was still shorter than Becka, a fact that she brought up to him on a regular basis, but he was gaining on her by the week. As they continued down the hall, Scott noticed a number of trinkets and lockets hanging on the wall. He couldn't put his finger on it, but they looked strangely familiar. Then he noticed something else. Frowning, he glanced around. Was it his imagination, or was it getting colder? There were no windows, open or otherwise, anywhere close by. Something inside him began to whisper, "Stop! Turn around! Go back!" But why? Nothing was wrong. It was just a hallway, just a bookshop.